Welcome to the Chris and Gary Show. My name's Chris Scott, joined by my partner in crime here, Gary Crethen. We're here to talk about all things real estate. Specifically today, we want to talk about the 2024 housing market predictions, specifically for real estate agents, not just anybody, but for real estate agents. If you like what you hear today, do us a favor, like, subscribe, do all the business. But Gary, let's just dive right into
Let's do
this. Talking about housing market predictions for the next year. It's been an interesting couple of years in real estate, right? Really, the last 3 years have been a bit of a whirlwind. We had a fast market, we had a hot market, we had a cooling market. And all of the signals are pointing to a very different market coming in the next year.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think the best way for us to be able to help our audience of real estate professionals understand these market predictions is to do so in a way that they might experience this themselves. Meaning, we've got 3 questions that we want to answer. And these are questions that they might get from their customers, from their clients, from their prospects.
You bet. Yeah, everybody's asking these questions. And the number one question we know that people are going to ask you as a real estate professional is, how's the market? But you got to know what you're talking about.
Yes. And you don't want, because when it comes down to how's the market, usually people have some motivation for trying to understand what's going on. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to buy or sell right away,
Right.
But they have an interest. And here's the thing, when people ask us that question, it's an opportunity for us to build trust. It's an opportunity for us to show our competence and really stand out. Or we can just sound like everybody else and say, well, what's the normal thing people say, Gary?
Well,
when you
the
ask
normal
how's the
thing that
market?
people say is, well, the market's great, but I'm never too busy for your business and referrals. And it's like, no, that's just no. We
can
need
do
to
better.
give some knowledge, expertise to stand out. Otherwise, they're not going to trust us.
We can do better. So let's get into the first question.
Okay.
The first question I want to answer for people is, that you might receive as a real estate professional, as a real estate agent or broker is, will there be more homes for sale in 2024, right? Are there going to be more homes available for sale? I think this is an important question because anyone who's been sitting on the sidelines or who's been watching the market has probably observed that for the last couple of years, there've not been that many homes for sale.
Inventory has been at historic lows. It's been almost impossible to find a home that you can purchase without multiple offers, without escalating clauses, without selling way above asking price. And it's just been really, really difficult for buyers.
Now, even in, I would say, in the last year and a half, where we saw a declining market, we still did not see a lot of home sales, right? We saw, actually, I think I was just reading this morning, where it looks like we'll have hit 2023. We'll have had the lowest number of home sales since 1995.
Wow.
Right? Like that. Oh, even less home sales than even during the Great Recession,
Right.
when we hit some of those valleys in the recession. So, the question is then, is it going to be different? Does the next year hold something different for us? And I think the answer is, and most of the experts would agree, is yes, there will be more homes for sale. But I think we can give people some ammunition to use in providing a response,
Okay.
right? And so, Gary, if you were asked the question, will there be more homes for sale? How would you respond to, let's say a friend or a prospect
Sure.
or, a customer?
Well, so first, I think we need to examine what happened in 2013 or 2023, rather. Because in 2023, what happened is that we had interest rates artificially inflated by the Fed. They just forced these interest rates way up. And what happened is that froze buyers. Buyers were fearful. They did not want to buy a house with interest rates that high. And sellers didn't want to sell because most of these sellers are locked into mortgage rates in the 3 and 4% range. So why would you exchange your home that's at a 3 to 4% interest rate for something that's in the 6 to 7 to 8% rate? Doesn't make sense. Even if you're downsizing, still doesn't make sense. So why would I take a 5,000 square foot home, downsize to a 3,000 square foot home, and have the same mortgage payment? It doesn't make sense. And so what the Fed actually did is it froze sales. It just killed them. What we're experiencing now is that the Fed has promised not to raise rates. In fact, they promised to reduce rates in 2024. What we anticipate that doing is pulling sellers off the sidelines who need to make a move, especially the number one greatest home seller in the marketplace right now. Those are baby boomers. They traditionally, they have really good interest rates on their homes right now, but they need to downsize. And so with that, as we can get better interest rates, what they're going to do, they're going to come off the sidelines. They're going to put their homes on the market. They're going to sell them. They're going to buy something smaller. So what we're looking at now is, yes, we are really interested in anticipating a much higher inventory of homes on the market in 2024 than we did in 2023, simply because rates are making it much more affordable and interesting for people to sell and then buy.
I think another contributor is we still continue to have more new homes being built
Right.
and hitting the market. So you combine lower interest rates, and here's the interesting thing is I think it was back in December, the Fed announced that they weren't going to do a rate change or a rate change increase, and then they indicated that they were probably going to do 3 rate decreases over the course of the year. Before they even made the change, the average interest rate went from somewhere in the 7s to in the 6s, like in a week or two.
Well,
very,
it
very
dropped.
quickly.
It dropped months before most people were thinking it would drop.
So you take that into account, and I think a safe prediction, if you were going to give someone an idea on how many homes are going to be available for sale, and ultimately how many homes will sell by the end of the year, if you were to count the total, is that it's probably going to be somewhere in between 2019 and 2023, right? Like, and I know that's a pretty broad range. However, back in 2019, at that time, I would not have said that there's a lot of homes on the market. I mean, we've been talking about how it's been an inventory constrained market for several years now, right? And 2019 not excluded. So there will be more homes for sale, but I still think it will be the seller will still have the advantage, right? The seller will still be in the position where it'll still be considered a seller's market, but there will definitely be more homes for sale, and the interest rates are going to be lower, and so that is a welcome reprieve for home buyers and really anybody who's thinking of making a move. So, that's some information I think that they can use to answer that question. Very important question to be able to answer. I think this next one, though, this next question really is something that it's a really big, important one. Gary, you alluded to this lock-in effect that people have with their low interest rates. And so the next question that I have is actually, it's kind of like 2 questions in one. And it's this: what are mortgage rates going to do in 2024? And then let me just add a little bumper. When will they go back to 3%? I think a lot of people are wondering we saw this 3% range. When are they going to go back to 3% so that I can make my move?
Yeah. So here's the thing. In 26 years of selling real estate, I have seen 3% interest rates, 4% interest rates one time in my entire career, and that was last year. And so when will we ever see them again? Probably not in our lifetime. I'm just going to put this out there. Probably not in my lifetime, and probably not in yours. And here's why. It was artificial. It was completely artificial, and money was almost free. They were printing money so fast, the Fed, that they couldn't keep up. And so here's what happened. Interest rates plummeted. Inflation skyrocketed, and they're not going to let that happen again. So when are rates going to go back to 3%? Probably never. And we all need to be settled with that and understand that that was like a very weird anomaly in our marketplace. What we can anticipate are rates heading back into the 5s. So when we get back into the 5s, those are still incredibly low interest rates. I remember the very first home I ever bought was 8.75% interest, and I was delighted for that. And so I think we get conditioned based on our short-term memory. But what is going to happen? Here is my prediction. My prediction is that home buyers are going to rapidly forget about the 3% rate. What they're going to do is they are now going to compare rates against the highs when they were at the 7s and 8s at the end of last year. And so what's going to happen is as we remove that short-term memory or longer-term memory, long-term.
Midterm memory.
We'll go midterm. If we remove that midterm memory and we focus on the short-term memory, it is going to force buyers back into the marketplace because they're going to see rates dropping and they're going to get excited about that, excited about the move, excited about getting out of where they've been for the past few years. So that's what I'm seeing. I don't ever anticipate 3% interest rates in my lifetime.
If you go back historically, we've never had 3% interest rates. Like it wasn't a thing.
No.
And in some cases, like 2.5, like those interest rates. And if you look at the chart, didn't occur even during the Great Recession, right? So during the Great Recession, which was caused by the housing industry, right? It was caused by housing, and it was caused by like bad loans, right? Even during that time, in order to deal with that situation and immediately after, we were still in the 5%, right? Like that was normal. And I think historically, when you look in recent history, 5-6%, that's kind of the norm. We've gotten very spoiled about this idea of a 2 or 3% mortgage rate. You go back in time, like in the 80s, we were at like 18% interest rate while we were combating inflation during the savings and loan crisis. So, the Mortgage Bankers Association, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the National Association of Realtors, everyone's kind of in the same ballpark where they're predicting rates to be in the coming year, which is in the sixes, maybe approaching the fives towards the end of the year.
Right.
Now,
here's the thing, Chris. Look at this. I remember 85 cents a gallon for unleaded gas. Now that was 1982. Am I ever going to see that again? No.
Probably not. And so I think what we have to do is, if somebody asks you that question, is to help them come off of the position that's what they should be expecting, right? And it might, the way I look at it is, it would probably take another black swan event like a pandemic to cause something like to happen. And maybe it wouldn't, right? I think that's one of the things that the Fed realized, is that they lowered the rates so low that they then had to raise the rates so high. I don't think they want to do that. So even if there were a black swan event, it may not mean that there's going to be 3% interest rates, because the Fed doesn't want to have to go back to fighting inflation again. And so I think what we have to do is help people understand that that was very much an anomaly, and there's a good chance that the Fed won't allow that to happen again. And the question for you as a buyer or seller, somebody who's thinking of moving, is, well, how long are you willing to wait? And what if it never happens? What's your alternative? Because if you don't buy or you don't sell, whatever you're trying to do, at what point is the waiting for something to happen that is unlikely going to outweigh the need to move, right? And I think, to your point, Gary, it's really about how fresh this is in our mind. I heard Dr. Lawrence Yun from the National Association of Realtors talk about when it comes to buyers, what they're affected by is not a high rate or a low rate, but rather a changing rate, right? So if it's going up, they don't want to do anything because, hey, it's going up. Even when it's going down, sometimes they don't want to do anything in hopes that it might go down further. So really what you're looking for is, what is a steady interest rate? And I think that's actually what the next year is going to hold for us, is a more steady interest rate environment, which is a good thing, which is going to be a good thing for us. So next thing, let's get into the third question. And this is something that I think a lot of consumers or homeowners are going to be interested in. But also, if someone's thinking of buying or someone's selling, this is also a question that they're going to have, which is, hey, what do you think home prices are going to do in the next year, right? So what are home prices going to do in the next year?
So I always look at the basics and fundamentals of economics, supply and demand. So when supply is low, demand is high, what happens to prices? They go up. What is happening right now? Supply is low, demand is high. What's going to happen? Prices go up. And I think so many people are like, they think, oh, well, prices have increased so much over the past few years, I'm going to wait until they plummet. I'm like, okay, well, then what we need to wait for is demand to go to zero, supply to go through the roof, and only then are we going to see a shift in pricing. So what do we do about that? I anticipate pricing to continue to increase. Now, may it slow? Yes. Why? Because supply is likely going to increase. So if supply increases, demand remains steady, price increases will not do this, but they may level off a little bit. But here's what I would recommend. If you, as a home buyer, find the home that you want, you can get the loan that you want, buy that home. Don't wait. Why? Because prices are guaranteed over time to increase. Guaranteed. Look at the past 50 years of real estate pricing. They always go up. We may have dips, but over time, they go up. So don't delay your purchase simply based on interest rates or based on your hope that prices are going to fall, because I don't anticipate that happening.
So when it comes to responding to this situation, I think if you look over the last couple of years, what you see is, you talked about supply of homes, right? The inventory of homes available to purchase. We have not been in a buyer's market since, I think, 2012, 2013, probably 2012 is the last time we were in what would be considered a buyer's market, meaning buyers had the advantage. But since that time, even with all the things that's gone on, it has remained a seller's market. Even in the last year, when home sales, or the sales count, has declined, home values, although they took a slight dip, home values took a slight dip, on a national level in the spring of 23 or 22. But outside of that, home values have continued to increase. And that is because what has continued to stay the same is not enough homes available to be able to satisfy the demand for them. And so home values are likely going to continue to see over the course of the next year a modest growth. Even with interest rates being adjusted and coming down a little bit, it means that we'll see modest growth. And that's what all of the economists are agreeing on, is that, maybe it's 3%, maybe it's 5%, whatever the case may be. It's probably not going to be 20%. It'll be something more reasonable, but it probably won't be negative. And, those are the three questions that we wanted to answer for everybody. But here's the thing. I think the bigger question that you should be asking yourself is, how do you prepare for 2024, right? What we've talked about is, the market's changing or the market's adjusting. How do I get ready? And here's what I would propose to everybody, Gary. The big thing to get ready for in 2024 is not the changing market itself, right? I would propose that the changing market is not what they need to prepare for. I think what they have to be ready for is a change in consumer attitude. Right. I think, unlike what many people have gotten used to, which was consumers either very exuberant and optimistic about home sales to being very pessimistic. And so coming out of that, I think people are going to want to move. But I think they're just going to be a little bit more cautious because of what has transpired. What they saw is a hot market. They saw a slower market in the sense of transaction count and interest rates all over the place. What that does is, for, I think, consumers, is say, hey, move forward and proceed with caution. And when a consumer is cautious, what happens is that they're trying to mitigate risk. Well, one of the ways that they're going to mitigate risk is with the real estate professional they hire, right? And so trust becomes very paramount. Like, all of a sudden, trust becomes very important, because I have to be very effective at connecting with and communicating my competence and character to an individual so that they're going to hire me, so that they will trust me, because they are less likely to hire a stranger. They're less likely to hire someone that they just kind of came across online, or, that they found through one of the home search sites. They're going to want to go with somebody that they trust, because cautious, and they're going to want to proceed with caution. And so how can you, or how...
That begs the question. How do you build superior trust in the market, with your consumer, with your customer, with your contacts and your connections today? How do you do that?
Well, I think what we have to do is, when we talk about adapting to the changes in the market, I think what we have to also look at is marketing to consumers has changed. There's an interesting study. A big research company, Gartner, they found they've been doing a lot of research on people and social media, and one of the things that they're predicting is that by 2025, so in a year from now, 50% of people, a full 50% of people, are going to significantly reduce their social media use. Right? Think about that. Here's the reasons why, by the way. People don't trust social media. They don't trust what they're seeing in their feed. They don't trust what they're seeing with AI, right? And they don't trust bots and scams and all these things that, and there's a political cycle going on right now, right? So there's all these things that they don't trust. And so social media is becoming an overly curated, feeling manipulated experience for many consumers. And so they've said that they're going to lower it. Well, I need to know that as a real estate professional. I need to know that information because if I'm heavily reliant on, let's say, just posting on social media, know that might not be working. I think another change to be ready for is it's an election year. I mean, a lot of times the news becomes less reliable, I guess.
I mean, we can even go as fake. But yeah, I think people are going to be, I think the word is skeptical. People are going to be much more skeptical of what they're reading in their news feeds on social media this year than they have in a long, long time. And so what we need to do is prepare for that. And Chris, my question to you as a professional marketer of real estate and for real estate agents, if we know that our consumer is going to be skeptical of what they're seeing on social media, how do we reach them?
Well, I think the big trend that you're going to see from marketing is a trend towards humanizing your marketing. A,
Oh, oh gosh, hold on. Humanizing a human to human real estate business.
It's, I
Shocking.
mean, real estate's always been a people business, right? There are times when it's hot, when we can get away with being transactional, right? When we can just buy leads and a percentage of those leads will convert and that kind of stuff. But real estate's always been about trust. And so our real estate marketing needs to build trust. And the way you do that is through human to human marketing. I'm not saying that every interaction has to be a human to human interaction. But I would say that if your marketing doesn't give someone the impression that there's a human behind it, then you're really missing the boat. And here's the thing.
So you're saying that every single thing that we're sending out has to have a human aspect to it.
Yes. I mean, when people see our marketing, we want them to see the character of who we are in our marketing. We want them to see the competence and knowledge that we have in our marketing. And because when it comes to choosing their real estate professional, people choose their agent based on the agent's reputation. And so our marketing should be about our reputation, which ultimately is about us, right? It's about us. And so the more you can connect with people on that human level through marketing, and there's a lot of ways you can do this, Gary. Short form video of you sharing information or knowledge that you have is a great way to produce human to human marketing. Using tools like messaging apps so that you're actually messaging people and connecting with them on a human level is a great way to do this. And so we have to be factoring that into our math, factoring that into our marketing plans, factoring that into our marketing strategies, because that is how people are going to connect. And that's what we're seeing is a greater distrust of digital stuff that's out there, curated stuff that's out there, and people leaning more into things like, hey, are you a real person? Are you part of my community? When I talk about community, I don't mean necessarily a physical community, I mean a digital community, but people are looking for community. People are looking to be able to connect on stories and having connections with people and experiences. And so our marketing, especially in real estate, needs to reflect that to a very, very deep degree. And I think real estate actually lends itself much easier than, if I was selling toothpaste, this would be a lot harder to do. If I was selling, I don't know, cars, that might even be a lot harder to do. But as real estate, it is something that's really built into the fabric of real estate, which is relationships, right? It's built into it. And Gary, I mean, you've been selling real estate for over a quarter century, right? And that probably has never changed, right? No matter.
It's always been the same. It's always been the same, but the tools and technologies that we use to communicate that human to human contact, that has changed, and it has become a lot easier to distribute the content, but the message remains the same. I'm a human, I care about you, I have knowledge and expertise in real estate, and I can offer that to you. That is what we need to be doing. But the thing is, Chris, we have to share it. And we have to share it consistently. We have to share it over time. And it must be heartfelt with knowledge and expertise. These are all aspects that we have to be doing consistently.
Now, It's not just the consumer changing and not just our marketing, therefore, that must adapt. There are also what I would call legal and compliance headwinds facing the real estate industry.
True.
Many
Yeah. Big changes. Big changes. Yeah.
I mean, many people have probably heard of these commission lawsuits, right? I mean, I think that that's been a big deal. All the real estate industry news cycles have actually kind of worn us out on these commission lawsuits that are taking place. But it is a real thing. Now, probably there's not anything immediate, but I do think that we have to be ready for two specific situations. The first one is, what if, a buyer, or let's say you want to show home to a buyer, and you look into the MLS and you see that there's no compensation offered to the buyer's broker, right? It's like that's a situation that we have to be ready to handle. Another situation I think that we have to be prepared, because we're all talking about how do we prepare. Another preparation is, let's say you're a listing agent. Let's say you're working with a seller. How do you respond to a seller who says that they don't want to offer the buyer's broker a commission? Right? These are things that we have to have answers for. You don't want to be caught off guard and on the spot with that. Now, the commission lawsuits, they've gotten a lot of press in the real estate industry news. And so I think there's, more people who have thought about that, or at least considered maybe what they will do in those situations. But another thing that I think kind of flew under the radar is some changes that the FCC has made, specifically around text messaging. And the fact is, unfortunately, there's a lot of real estate professionals sending what I would call illegal texts. They would be defined as illegal texts by the FCC, by the way, not just me. I'm not just calling it. FCC would call it illegal texts. For example, if you don't have someone's permission explicitly to send them a text message about some business-related thing, that's considered an illegal text. If your text messages is about marketing purposes, doesn't have the ability for someone to opt out and stop receiving those communications, that's an illegal text. And what they've done is they've amplified, right? They've amplified basically to the same degree of the do not call list, right? To say that, hey, do not call list and do not text list is essentially the same. And so we need to make sure that we're complying with these rules, these regulations. A lot of this is rolling out this year. And so, are we ready for these things? Well, those are the things that we believe that you need to be ready for, or to start preparing for in the next year, in 2024. So you've got market, we gave you our market predictions. We shared with you some of the changes, which are not just about the real estate market itself, but a larger issues at stake here. And we have to be ready. Right? We just have to be ready. So we want to thank you for checking us out. This is something that we love to do, is to share things that we see happening in the real estate market, things that we're seeing in our own real estate practice, and things that we're helping our clients with through the paperless agent. If you'd like to take a next step about dealing with some of these challenges, we encourage you to check out our listing summit. This is a virtual event that is taking place at the end of January. We'll include a link in the description and show notes so that you can get access and learn more about it. Until then, do us a favor, subscribe. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.